We're back in the car.
Yep.
Hey, welcome back to our Stupid Rags of Corbin.
I'm Rick.
You can follow us on Instagram, Twitter, more juicy content.
It's there.
Thank you to everybody supports on Patreon. Follow us Twitter account, subscribe to the like button.
Foreshadowing of the juiciness.
And today we were in the car because we just walked out. Not walked out.
Yeah, I was going to clarify.
Clarifications.
We just walked out. We could not sit through it.
We just finished OMG 2 with Akshay Kumar and our Dosty of Dosts, the actually founder of the word dosed.
That's true. The one who began that term for us, for those we've interviewed.
Yes.
Yeah.
Pankaj called us our dose. Has he called you as dosed? Probably not. I will always cherish that moment.
Me too.
Anyways, but yes, we just walked out of, once it get finished, OMG 2.
Yeah.
With Akshay and Pankaj, the 2023 film, the sequel to the first OMG, which we saw pretty early on. I want to say it was in the first year.
I think so.
Probably, right?
Yeah. Was it our second Akshay film? May have been.
I think it might have been our second Akshay film after Kasari.
Sorry.
This is, but it's obviously directed by
Amit Rao.
Amit Rao, and then composed
Or Rai. I think that's Rai.
Oh yeah, maybe.
Yeah. Sorry. The font was.
Oh, it's not coming up because I don't have internet.
That's okay.
But yeah, you're basically your stars. Your Pankaj is your main star actually, and I actually wouldn't and we'll get into it more. Clarify this is a full-on sequel. I think it's actually more standalone.
Yeah, without giving any spoilers away.
Yeah,
yeah.
I don't think
it is. I have.
Anyways,
about that
but
as well.
We will talk about everything, but there'll be a little non-spoiler review for those who haven't seen it because it is a new film. That's how we do it. And if you'd like to, if you want to go watch it, please go watch it, and then we will get into some spoils. But we will tell you before we do. So
yeah, keep the ball rolling in the movie theaters in India because you guys had a record-breaking weekend with this, Jailer, and Gadar 2. Was the biggest weekend.
Gadar 2 has a big thing to do with that too.
Huge.
That thing is.
So it was an amazing weekend.
What year is it? Because that's what she's saying. Is all those stars are like
those
big
stars.
90s stars, and they're like doing big box office.
That's great.
Anyways, Rick, your initial non-spoiler right now.
Yeah,
thoughts
initial non-spoiler
OMG
thoughts.
2, please.
I went in expecting what I got from OMG, which it was going to be lighthearted fare with a message, and it was going to be entertaining.
Mm-hmm.
And I got that, and a whole lot more. There's the majority of what we'll talk about, we have to talk about in spoilers because so much of the film, and I think they did a really great job of keeping the gems hidden from us in the trailers so that you get surprised. If you don't know anything about the film other than what you've seen in the trailer and the teaser, then you're in a beautiful position to be as naive and unaware as we were going in, and be, I think, really pleasantly surprised at what I ultimately walked away from, thankfully saying this was even better than I hoped and expected it would be. I really, really like this movie a lot.
Yeah.
Parts of it that I just straight up love.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it as well. It's, without giving it away, because I don't want to say it, because it didn't in the trailer really give it away of like what it's actually about fully, and we will get into that in spoils.
Yeah, I want the movie to tell you that.
But I was struck while I was watching. I was like, one, it happens so much in India. They talk about really important taboo subjects, right?
Yeah.
All the time. Like, it happens in a ton of films. It's like a staple of a certain actor, obviously, but it's like, it's been around for a long time of like, that's a family entertainer with a deep message about something that's not normally talked about, right?
Right.
That's basically a genre in India.
It really is.
I can't remember the last time an American film, I mean, you have films that talk about things and deeper issues, but not in this way. That's for the whole family.
Exactly.
That will hopefully, and has in the past, like with Three Idiots and other things as well, with the Ayushman's films, that hopefully they start up conversations about not only goings on in families, but also in society, in schools, in the government. I love that's a genre.
It's incredible, and they're masterful. That was the main takeaway. Without giving you a spoiler, you've heard us use the word before. Did not expect this film to be as important as it is.
Very.
Yeah.
So yeah, that whole, obviously that's the reason to see the film, but the other reasons are Pankaj. The dude can't give a bad performance ever. I don't think it's actually possible.
He's such a beautiful. We say it. The word I use for him all the time is you see the beautifulness of who he is in his portrayals and the honesty and the truth.
If Robert Downey Jr. had a beautiful soul, not Robert. If Robert De Niro had a beautiful soul,
yeah.
I'm sure he does. But if he gave off that essence, which Pankaj does,
that's why he's so perfect for a role like this. You know who he? This is the kind of film This is the kind of role that many moons ago would have been given to Jimmy Stewart.
Yeah,
yeah,
that's a good.
And he can do that. It's the same kind of endearing, wholesome quality where you believe in him. He has a vulnerability, and he carries the film.
Yeah, and Akshay as well, I think does a really good job. He's not,
good job.
And it's not a spoiler because it was in the trailer of who he's playing.
Of course,
we were told. I think he was playing Shiva in this one, right? And the other one he was playing. I apologize for not knowing the names, but
Vishnu.
Was it Vishnu?
Yeah, it was one or the other of that, as well as Mahadev, if that's pronounced correctly.
We are ignorant, obviously.
Yeah,
sorry, guys.
No,
but
just purely telling you what we know from our ignorance.
I 100% believed that he was this deity. That I think he carried himself well. We've seen it like people playing different deities in different films.
Yeah,
before.
Those of you who know. You'd be the better judge of that.
Yes.
As to whether or not he's accurately portraying what is written and known.
I got a lot of the symbolism of like different things.
And the humor actually on some of the things.
Not all of it, obviously.
Yeah,
for sure. If you are an Indian or two are a Hindu, you're going to pick up way more.
A beautiful stupid baby. This is in the trailer, so it's not a spoiler. A few stupid babies sent me messages that said one of the things that was really funny in the trailer you guys wouldn't have gotten was when Pankaj said to him that the Ganges flows one way, and he looks at him and he goes, "Don't talk to me about the flow of the Ganges," because he actually controls the flow.
Is that who it is?
He controls the flow of the Ganges.
I remember the joke in the film, and I assumed it was something like that, but I obviously didn't know exactly what it was. So I'm assuming there's a bunch of different humor like that he says that we got some of it, but I'm sure there's
one I'll say for the spoilers that I think we both
way
really
more
enjoyed.
But yeah, overall for the non-spoilers, I enjoyed all the music. I thought, but that's not really why you go either, though, for this. It's the important messaging of this film, which we're not going to give away.
Yeah.
And just obviously, I think it's incredibly well done for a commercial film to have such an important. And we've said that so many times in Indian films.
It happens over and over. And India is untouchable in that regard. We were introduced to it early on. When we saw Pink, we were amazed in the first year at, oh my goodness, the subject matter is just, and it's often done in a courtroom setting. It's a great setting to cover these things because then you have the pros and the cons, the arguments for and against, and it is. You said it that India cinema has its own genre of a family film that covers messages that are as important. Like, for example, take something as important as the messaging in the TV series Delhi Crime Season 1, right?
Yeah.
And then somehow turn that into a family film. India does that all the time.
Yeah. And it's really great. And just also it's just super interesting. I hope it, and I know it is going over well, obviously. And hopefully people are taking their families to see these kind of films so they can start, because it's not just India, obviously. I can't say that. I'll talk about that in the spoilers. I was just about to get into something, but we'll get into that in spoils because I don't want to give away.
No,
if you don't want to, yeah. So if you haven't watched it, please go watch it. It's in theaters, obviously, and it's, by the time you're seeing this, Happy Independence Day.
Yes.
India. And go watch it with your family.
Watch it.
I think it'll be a really enjoyable. There's so many films. We don't know about Godard 2 yet, but there's 2 at least you can go and have with the families.
Here, a couple of weeks ago, it was Oppenheimer and Barbie. Right now, for us, it's go ahead and have a double feature and see OMG 2 and Jailer.
Exactly. We almost did do a double feature.
We almost did it that way, yeah.
But yes, so if you haven't watched it, please go watch it. Come back because we're going to get into some spoils.
Yeah, here's the spoils now.
So if you haven't watched it, go watch it.
Assuming all of you have seen it, and now we can talk about it in full Monty.
So obviously the subject matter being sex education.
Right out the gate.
Sex, masturbation. And all this it kind of strikes me. I was like, oh, we're going into this.
Right at the minute we started.
I feel like they didn't give it away in the trailer.
Not in the least, and I love that they did that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I thought that was one of the strongest things about it. It's you come in thinking you're going to get something, especially in light of OMG, and this is the sequel, and you realize, okay, is this just a start of something and it's going to evolve into something else? Or are we on the topic of the film?
Mm-hmm.
And it just says, here we are.
Yes.
I loved it.
And it's such a difficult conversation, especially for in India, which and they went over so much of it beautifully, obviously, because there's so many different India. We have sex education here, but there's not. There are people that hate that we have such education in schools.
It's an embattled topic.
And it's unfortunate that it is. Yeah. But in India, where there's so many different sentiments, for lack of a better word, and different cultures, smaller towns, different a billion different religions that have different views on it.
Right.
The fact that they took it and really played out the arguments for it. In a commercial way.
Right, and it even did a really good job. I thought, forgive me for not knowing your name right off the bat, but our actress who played she's basically she's the antagonist.
Oh, yeah.
She didn't vilify the character.
Yami.
That's a credit to Yami Gautam. That's a credit to the screenwriting, the directing, and to her portrayal of the character, because it would have been really easy for that to have just been the enemy, and this is the good guy. There were points where they made arguments where you really wondered, is he going to win the case? Because she just made a point that a lot of people agree with.
Yeah.
I thought it was really well done.
Yeah, and it was also so interesting because I was nervous for a second because I was like, are we just going to go after the schools and not talk about the people
parents.
that is actually responsible for, because that's who you live with, right?
The
parents' responsibility to raise your children. Yes, the school should also educate as well, because not all parents do it. But
should be complimentary.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was like, are we just gonna leave the parents off the hook, and they didn't. Yeah. Which is good, because it is a taboo. It's a taboo subject everywhere.
It is.
Unfortunately,
and it's so sad that it is, and it's. And everything. I loved how openly they were talking about, and I hope it made a lot of people feel really good, especially young people. I mean, my dad heart was all over this thing in regard to especially young men who feel shame about masturbating, who feel shame about penis size, who girls who are told that there's something shameful in your period. Yeah. That stuff breaks my heart to the point of tears. It is so sad that these normal parts of our humanity have become shameful when they ought not. And the young man that played the son,
he actually did a really good job.
What a great job, and great casting, because he not only was believable and carried a role that's not an easy role to carry at his age, but he had such an innocent persona and face that it just broke your heart all the more. And there were points also where our hero, you were disappointed in the way he was parenting his kid, but also realizing it's because of the way he was parented and he grew up as well. And he, to his credit, is teachable.
Yes.
You know?
Which is beautifully played once again by Pankaj.
Yeah.
But yeah, the fact that they portrayed so many layers of, like, because we've seen it a billion times of a parent in Indian cinema slapping their child, slapping somebody else. But
for something they ought not be slapped for.
Yeah. And we've seen films about, slapping, right? In general.
The moment when his dad slaps him and then he asks everybody else, do you want to slap me too? Mm-hmm. You want to slap me too? And that was heartbreaking.
I thought that Akshay's performance in those moments, when he was kind of I don't know if he was saying scripture or if he was
Right.
just saying, just talking, right?
Yeah.
I thought he did a really good job. I thought he brought a lot of empathy to that.
He sure did.
That character. I thought he did a really good job.
And I really appreciate the directness of the screenwriting. Just the directness.
Not pulling punches.
Not at all. Just straight up saying the penis goes in the vagina and then the sperm, and just why. There's a moment in the courtroom where he's talking about that and he has the chart down of the human body, saying why have we've changed the names to pee and weenie and wee wee, and why these are part of who we are, and everybody sitting in this room, you are a result. I've often said that jokingly, especially with the kids when they were old enough to understand sex, and point around to every single person, especially with a large crowd, and say, look, every single one of these people's an orgasm. Look at it. Every single one of them.
It's a little penis fruit. And I also really loved, and you guys would know more of it than I would, the fact that we've said it actually many times, is like, so the country that has the Kama Sutra.
Kama Sutra.
And so many sculptures that I've seen displaying sexual acts.
Yeah.
So many like different things. The country of the Kama Sutra doesn't want to talk about sex.
Thanks, England.
Yeah, right. And they brought that up obviously in the film. I also thought it was
true.
a beautiful moment about the sex worker.
I did too.
In it.
I loved her taking the veil off her face at the end.
And her saying basically, like, she was like, he asked her, do you ever have pleasure in it?
Right.
And she's like, no, they come to me this is my job. I don't,
right.
This is not something that I'm doing for fun. And then I was like, so where are we going with this, Pankaj? And he was like, do you want your son to be somebody who will be able to respect and pleasure a woman?
Right.
Or do you want him to be one of the people that comes to you?
Right.
Just for his pleasure.
Exactly.
And I was like, that's direct.
Very direct.
That the film is very direct.
As was...
by also being commercial.
One sentence, I think, that was so revealing and very, very true. She not only talked about the men that come to her just for their own pleasures or to abuse the women, but the last thing she said was, and then there's the men who just come to cry.
Mm-hmm.
You know? The brokenness of human beings who have not had a healthy understanding of sexuality. And they really covered every topic. He covered the search that people did on a girl's name because she was raped. The scene that could have gone wrong in a million ways with the little girl describing what her uncle did. That could have been so misdone, and I thought it was really, really, again, what a strange, wonderful thing to have a film of this caliber that feels like a family comedy
And
cover these topics so well.
It's happened so many times. I mean, like, what's his face has a whole genre of it.
And the important thing of this is that it hopefully does bring about discussions. It hopefully does bring about some things that can change, because I know that the things that they were talking about really are the way they are. And it's not just in India, it's around the world. And it really does need to change. The shaming of human beings' sexuality when we are sexual beings is one of the really biggest catastrophes to happen in society, when it should be something that's celebrated and understood and made healthy, because not only would people be happier, but society would be a better place. You would have so many less problems if people had an understanding about sexuality that was healthy.
Easily. Another thing I thought was weird, not a flaw in the film at all, but the fact that all these people, one, somebody filmed a child masturbating, and then presumably the entire country was watching this child.
They've got a problem with the kid who went in the bathroom to do it in private.
If any of you were found in the United States with that on your phone, you'd be going to jail for child pornography. So maybe don't watch children masturbate.
Or film them masturbating.
So I was like, this just like all these adults laughing.
And it's not abnormal, y'all. It's very common, especially for guys, especially for teenage guys. I jokingly leaned over to Corbin and I said, good grief, a teenager who took 3 Viagra?
Yeah.
It's not uncommon for them to want to masturbate multiple times a day, and to do it in places where, number one, they have the urge that they can't overcome, but there's also a sense of danger that has an erotic high to it, where you're in a bathroom and you could get caught.
Yeah.
it's not like he wasn't doing it in assembly in front of everybody.
I just thought it was so weird that all these people
were watching
adults that knew his mother and sister in front of them were like, hey, look at your son masturbating. Like, what are you doing? That's a child. You're going to jail.
Exactly. But I think that was
I know that was part of the
point. That's part of the story.
That was part of the point.
It's look at the pots calling the kettle black.
But can you imagine, like, if this film was made in the United States? Oh yeah. And they'd be like, why is there a film about adults watching a child masturbate?
Why hasn't anybody in the court mentioned the very fact?
Yeah, it was like such a weird thing when anytime that I saw somebody watching the video.
I would love to know. I'd really love to know if there's anybody. And there's a lot of stupid babies. You've messaged me so many personal things before because I've had the honor from many of you. You consider me very much like a dad in many respects because I am a dad.
I consider you a bitch.
I'm old enough to be most of your dads. That I hope that this movie made you feel better if for some reason you feel a sense of shame in some way. And maybe even as a parent, maybe you have shamed a child or felt ashamed yourself. And it's not just kids. That stat, he said in India, is the same in America, that 97% of men masturbate and 77% of women masturbate. And that even happens for folks who are in happy, sexually healthy marriages. It's not abnormal. I hope it made you feel normal. I hope if you for some reason feel inferior or insecure about your penis size, that it made you feel a little more comfortable and a little better about yourself. There was one sentence about a girl's period. Yeah. And girls having sexual pleasure and the differences between that.
Exactly.
It's just such a... it needs to be talked about more and more. It's so wonderful.
And there's so many things people unfortunately feel shame for as kids, and that then they grow up and it's trauma that they have to deal with. And I only say that because obviously growing up in a church setting, and this was nothing about my parents, but it was just a church setting, and it's something that I noticed a lot, that a lot of people in the church, would shame girls for their bodies. So, like, this is something...
They still do.
This is something that would happen. We would go, like, on summer vacation, like a summer beach blast or a church beach thing.
Which is very common.
Very common, right? I could go to the pool however I like.
Right.
Take off my shirt, have swim trunks on. The girls, and this was in the early 2000s, would have to wear large T-shirts if they would get in the pool.
Yep.
To protect the boys.
Worship teams. Yes. Today, I know of a church that has a dress code for the worship teams that is so prudish, it is so terrified that the girls are going to look beautiful on the platform, that it is reprehensible. And it's not just done in one church. It's done all over the place because there is this stigmatizing and demonizing of human beings as actually sexual beings. And seeing,
they made that point about breastfeeding in the thing.
Yeah, it was a great point.
Yeah.
He shows the picture of that and says, so what do you see here? Do you see a mother breast? Do you see a mother?
It wasn't a picture he was pointing at.
Yeah, he said, do you see a mother feeding a child, or do you see a naked woman?
Yeah. And I say all that just because that grows, those kids grow up and they hold on to that, even though they're like, I know that was wrong. I still have these lingering things of I can't be proud of my body because I think my body is shameful.
How many teenage girls feel like, okay, I guess my body, it shouldn't be exposed because there's something wrong with it.
It's only meant for a man's pleasure.
Right, it's got to be covered up. Or there's something wrong with me that men can't look at me and they lose control of themselves.
Yeah, it's absolutely ridiculous.
I heard somebody say recently on a reel, and it's a great point when it comes to women in particular.
So this was obviously male-centric per se because of the fact that it was the son who was caught masturbating, and there were a couple of times it talked about female things. But when it comes to women, we talked obviously about the period and sexual pleasure for a woman. I was reminded of a reel I saw recently of a guy who said a simple fact, and it's so true. He said, if a man was put in a room full of women, he's going to feel pretty happy. If a woman's put in a room full of men, she's probably going to feel uncomfortable. And that's very telling.
I would feel uncomfortable.
It would, but it's true. And it's not just because there's a lot of reasons for that in the society. And I would love to see, the other thing I love about the film, this is my thought, is they have now reached a place with this franchise. They can just keep doing OMGs and cover new important topics that need to be addressed, and let Akshay be another avatar who becomes the voice of reason and the moral conscience of the character that directs them of their own free will to make the right choice, and everybody learns the truth about the subject. it's magnificent.
Yeah.
It really is wonderful.
Anyways, well, my mics aren't
Yeah, the mics are going.
working very well, and so we've had to cut us like 2 or 3 times. So let us know what you thought about the film. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, what your thoughts are down in the comments below. What should be our next Pankaj and Akshay films that we should watch? And
were you masturbating while you watched this?
I hope so.
We do, really.
But hopefully you saw my face.
But in private, not out in public.
Like, oh, I'm looking at Corbin. Oh,
That's
I'm looking
juicy.
at Rick.
That's juicy content.
Also, unrelated to what I just said, Happy Independence Day.